Imagine a weapon so precise, so terrifying, that it could strike a man dead from hundreds of yards away, silent and unseen, until it was too late. A machine that didn't just break walls, but shattered the courage of those who faced it. This was the ballista, a marvel of ancient engineering that enemies dreaded and craftsmen revered. Yet, for all its power, its story has faded, leaving only whispers of its role in shaping the weapons we know today. Let's uncover its tale, from its humble beginnings to its dominance on the battlefields of empires. The ballista's roots stretch back to the vibrant workshops of ancient Greece, where minds hungry for discovery first toyed with mechanical might. Long before it became a tool of conquest, it was a spark of invention. Picture the gastrophetes, a curious device from the 5th century BC, not unlike an oversized crossbow. A warrior would brace it against their stomach to cock it, launching bolts farther and with greater force than any traditional bow could muster. It was crude at first step, but it hinted at something groundbreaking. A machine that stored energy not in the flex of wood, but in the tension of coiled fibers, amplifying power in ways no one had seen before. A century later, in the fortified city of Syracuse, a ruler named Dionysius took a bold step. He hired engineers, not just as advisors, but as full-time innovators, tasked with building weapons to secure his power. In their workshops, Greek craftsmen twisted bundles of sinew or hair into tight coils, harnessing torsion to propel massive projectiles with devastating speed. This was the birth of the true ballista, a machine that could hurl bolts or stones with such force it redefined siege warfare. By the time Philip II of Macedon and his son Alexander the Great took the stage, these machines weren't just for cracking city walls. Lightweight versions, early mobile ballistae, rolled onto open battlefields. During Alexander's siege of Tyre in 332 BC, his engineers used them to clear defenders from towering ramparts and shield siege towers as they advanced. Ancient accounts tell of bolts striking with such precision that they could pick off enemy leaders from afar, a feat that left soldiers trembling. But the Greeks, for all their brilliance, only scratched the surface of what this weapon could do. It was Rome that would take the ballista and forge it into something legendary. When Roman legions clashed with Greek armies in the eastern Mediterranean, they didn't just seek clever devices. They saw a way to dominate. Where the Greeks used ballistae sporadically, Rome envisioned them as standard-issue tools, versatile enough for any campaign, whether storming a fortress or defending a camp. The Romans brought their relentless discipline to the task, refining the ballista with precision, logistics, and battlefield savvy. Picture Rome's first encounters with these machines around the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, facing the armies of Syracuse, Macedon, and the Seleucids. Cities with towering stone walls and seasoned defenders demanded more than ladders or battering rams. Rome needed weapons with reach, power, and accuracy. The ballista delivered all three. During the siege of Syracuse from 214 to 212 BC, in the Second Punic War, Roman forces under Marcus Claudius Marcellus faced a barrage of Greek artillery, including ballistae designed by the genius Archimedes. Ancient writers like Livy and Plutarch describe how these machines pummeled Roman ships and soldiers with uncanny precision, hurling stones and bolts that sank vessels and crushed ranks. Though Syracuse fell, the lesson was clear. Siege warfare was now an arms race, and Rome was determined to win it. From that moment, the Romans wove ballistae into their military fabric. By the time of Julius Caesar, these machines were everywhere, not just for sieges, but as mobile artillery on the battlefield. Caesar's own accounts describe them at Avaricum and Alesia, where Roman fortifications bristled with ballistae, controlling perimeters and repelling enemy assaults. The machines weren't just tactical tools. They embodied Rome's obsession with order and control. Unlike the chaos of slings or bows, the ballista was a weapon of calculation. Its every part measured, its every shot predictable. Rome didn't stop at heavy siege engines. They crafted lighter versions, called scorpions, for field combat and mounted ballistae on ships for naval battles. Each legion had its own artillery corps trained to build, operate, and maintain these machines. Even a temporary camp became a fortress, with ballistae perched on corner towers. ready to strike. Now imagine the ballista itself, not just a bigger crossbow, but a masterpiece of deadly engineering. Its frame, carved from sturdy oak, was built to withstand immense forces. 2 vertical pillars rose from it, housing tightly wound torsion springs, coils of sinew or hair, soaked in vinegar to stay elastic. These springs were the heart of the machine, storing energy that, when released, snapped the throwing arms forward with explosive force. Bronze washers, called meticulous, let engineers fine-tune the tension, adjusting for humidity or heat that could swell or shrink the coils. Get it wrong, and the arms might snap or the shot might falter. Get it right, and the ballista was a force of nature. Every part was measured with mathematical precision, as laid out by the architect Vitruvius in the 1st century BC. If a bolt was 90 centimeters long, the torsion springs housing was 1/9 of that, the arms 7/9. Nothing was guessed, everything was calculated, like a lethal equation carved in wood and bronze. The bolt rested in a smooth groove, a guide rail ensuring a straight, deadly path. Crews of 4 or more worked in unison, using a ratcheted winch to draw back the arms, locking them with a simple trigger. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a system, scalable from small field scorpions to massive siege engines, all built to the same proportions. This standardization let Romans prefabricate parts, transport them across mountains or rivers, and assemble them in hours, ready to fire. The men who operated these machines, the ballistarii, were more than soldiers. They were craftsmen and engineers, trained under commanders, who followed manuals rooted in Vitruvius's work. Every evening, as legions built their camps, these crews set up their ballistarii at key points, checking ammunition, adjusting tension, watching the weather. A rainy day could slacken the springs. A dry one could over-tighten them. They tuned their machines like musicians, feeling the fibers, ensuring every shot was perfect. A single bolt required a team, one to load, one to crank, one to check tension, one to give the order. When it fired, the result was devastating. Modern recreations, built by groups like experimental archaeologists in Europe, bring this ancient terror to life. Using Vitruvius's ratios and ancient methods, they've shown how a ballista's bolt could pierce 2 layers of armor or shatter a shield wall. These machines fired 2 to 4 bolts a minute, each weighing 5 to 10 kilograms, speeding over 100 kilometers per hour. A heavy ballista could hurl a projectile 400 to 500 meters, battering walls or gates. Smaller versions, like the Ballista, were deadly accurate at 100 to 200 meters, picking off officers or cavalry with sniper-like precision. Archaeological finds, like iron-tipped bolts at Vindolanda or stone balls at Masada, match Vitruvius's specifications, proving these weren't just ideas, they worked. The ballista didn't just kill, it terrified. At the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, as recounted by Josephus, Roman artillery overwhelmed defenders. Bolts tore through crowds, stones crushed bodies, and the silent speed of the shots left no chance to brace. Smaller ballistae, mounted on siege towers, cleared walls of archers, softening defenses before infantry struck. No shield could stop it, no wall could guarantee safety. Even behind fortifications, a defender could be impaled in an instant. The Romans carved taunts like for you into stone projectiles, a psychological jab to break morale. In open battles, ballistae acted like ancient sniper rifles, targeting leaders to sow panic. At Alesia, Caesar's machines fired from elevated positions, cutting down Gallic cavalry before they could regroup. Naval battles saw ballistae mounted on warships, ripping sails or clearing decks before boarding. At Actium in 31 BC, Octavian's fleet used them to cripple Antony and Cleopatra's ships, creating chaos before the ram struck. Even when a bolt missed, its crack against stone or flesh disrupted formations, spooked horses, and broke enemy rhythm. The ballista didn't just kill, it controlled the battlefield, forcing enemies to hesitate, to cower, to break. As the Western Roman Empire fell, the ballista faded. The schools that trained its engineers, the crews that maintained it, the supply chains that fed it, all crumbled. In medieval Europe, crude imitations like the onager lingered, but the ballista's precision was lost. Only in the Byzantine East did a smaller, metal-framed version, the Ballista, see limited use. Yet its legacy endured. Medieval crossbows borrowed its accuracy, trebuchets its ambition. Centuries later, minds like Leonardo da Vinci studied ancient texts, sketching machines inspired by those same principles. What made the ballista extraordinary wasn't raw power, but calculated lethality. It was sniper artillery in a chaotic age, demanding not just materials, but a culture of discipline, mathematics, and logistics. Many had the idea, but only Rome had the vision to make it a battlefield titan. The ballista wasn't just a weapon. It was Rome's philosophy in wood and sinew, blending science, fear, and efficiency into a tool that shaped warfare for centuries.